Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside D2Football. We've got the whole crew here tonight, along with Matt Witwicky, Coach Poe, Justin Bellissi, D2K-Ferg, Chris Ferguson, and Tony Nicolette. I am Chuck Bittner, here to unpack Week 9 in NCAA Division II football. Get ready for the next release of the regional rankings that will come out on Monday evening. And, of course, that's going to be our first look at the stacked order of 1 through 10 in each of the super regions. So we will go through some projections, probably have some debates, some arguments, and I'm sure you'll have some comments on our projections as well. So we'll do that at the tail end of the show. We'll go through business as usual, go through the top games from yesterday, go around the country, get you up to speed on everything important that happened, and start shaping the picture for the playoff races. And guys, I'm still adjusting to some of these new changes. We have a couple of teams who have automatic qualifying bids on the line this coming weekend, and we have one that was actually earned yesterday. Harding has already wrapped up the Great American Conference, so congrats to the Bisons. They are GAC champions, and they are the first team to actually secure a bid through the automatic qualification process to the Division II playoffs. So congrats to the Bisons. So obviously a whole lot to talk about tonight on Inside D2Football. So with that, let's waste no more time. Let's go right to the top games, and we had 4 top 25 matchups. And guys, I think this probably was the most high profile of those games in the RMAC. We had undefeated Western Colorado hosting CSU-Pueblo, who came into that game with just the one loss out of conference to Fort Hays all the way back in the early part of the season. So, Whit, I know we have a ton of highlights to run through. There certainly were several for this game. So let's take a look at how this one unfolded.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to unpack here, kind of a tale of two halves, Chuck. And we'll go ahead and hit the video here. And you see Drew Nash early going ahead, and they get to the pay window and off to a real good start here in this one. They ended up getting off to a 21-0 start in this ball game. You're going to see here they get on the board here as of the early second quarter. It's 14-0. And Pueblo can't get anything going offensively. Then we're going to try a rugby punt that takes a little bit too long, and Western was okay with that. Now we're this is how we got to that 21 that we mentioned earlier, and they were in control almost the entire first half. We get down here about 6 minutes left, and Pueblo remembers what got them the win a year ago, which was taking shots down the field. Reggie Ratzlaff gets it all the way down, and they score a play later. And now we're moving into the second half of the contest, 21-7 it was at the break. And you're going to see Marcellus Honeycutt run right past the corner here for a long score. And this is kind of where they were headed with things, going ahead and taking some deep shots like this and having some success down the field. And frankly, Western didn't have much of an answer offensively in the second half, despite the fact being a great third quarter team this season. You're going to go ahead and see the left tackle throws a lookout block there, and they go ahead and get the sack from the backside. And we had just seen them a moment ago taking a shot here with Roman Fuller to Marcellus Honeycutt. And they're able to go ahead and get a nice another, big chunk play again through the passing game. And where's Ricky Freeman been for Western Colorado? There he is. He just buried, Roman Fuller, but Fuller gets on back on up, playing yet, and they're still down the score as we're near the end of the third quarter. And you see Reggie Ratzlaff get loose, corner falls. That's really not the guy to have your corner fall against, and he gets what was in originally, and then they go ahead and revisit it and go Wildcat here on the first down play after he was ruled out of bounds. Well blocked, Martinez gets on in for the score, and all of a sudden we've got ourselves a tie ball game here as the fourth quarter is about to begin. And it just kind of felt like the momentum had really changed. And then Western gets themselves in a spot for a field goal. That ball looked like it didn't get up real high and goes ahead and gets blocked. Pueblo takes over with about 5-6 minutes left, and instead of throwing the ball down the field, they get a chunk play just like this to put them in field goal range. And all of a sudden, it kind of just has that feeling like this might be Pueblo's game. And Western, no score in the second half, and you see Pueblo here with the field goal to win it at the gun, and a walk-off for Pueblo in a 24-21 contest. Guys, this was a game that looked like it was going to be maybe even a blowout, and then all of a sudden Pueblo was able to start hitting some shots down the field, open things up, ran the ball a little bit at the end to get themselves in a good spot. And boy, I tell you, if you're Jazz Baines and company, you're just kicking yourself after a contest like this.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I have some thoughts because I know you and I chatted a little bit. But why don't we go around the room and get some reactions from some of the other guys? Tony, I know that you saw Pueblo a little bit earlier in the season at UCM. Man, I think one of the things that kind of stood out to me here, a couple things, but I mean, Reggie Rutzlaff, we all know about him, but I think if I am going to face Pueblo in the playoffs, I'm not going to go man-to-man with Marcellus Honeycutt too often because, man, what a deep threat he is.
Yeah, he is, and that's having those receivers healthy is part of why I picked Pueblo in the pick'em because – some of the earlier parts of the season, losing to Hayes, or having that game that they barely eked one out against UCM, that receiving core was pretty dinged up. And Roman Fuller was still able to find a way to get guys the ball and was still putting up big numbers. And the other thing that I took away from that game that I saw them live was they just don't quit. I mean, they did so many things. They made so many mistakes in that game that kept giving UCM opportunities to do stuff, and they still just hang in there and kept swinging until they found a way to get out of there with the win. And that's a game they probably shouldn't have won, but they did anyway. And so it's, when you see a team that can play with that kind of moxie when the chips are down, obviously coming back from 21-0 is pretty exemplary of that.
Yeah, Justin, from a coaching perspective, yeah, Western gets up 21-0. That's pretty thrilling for the home crowd. But when you're still in the first half of a game, and you're a quality opponent, that 21-0 deficit, that's manageable at that point, right?
Yeah, it's something that you talk about, particularly when you go in at the half, right? Like you have to hit the reset button. You have to come out and treat it as if it's 0-0. And I know that's cliche, but you have to, right? Like you have to come out and win the second half just like you did win the first half. And they just couldn't do that yesterday. And Pueblo is a good football team, and they just kept chipping away. And that's, if you're Pueblo, that's what you say. Hey, we got to take it one play at a time. We just got to win the next play and win the next play and win the next play. And then it just starts to snowball, and before you know it, you're back in the ball game and you have a chance to win. And so it's a tough lesson to learn, but it's one that hopefully will pay dividends here as the season goes on for Western Colorado.
Yeah, for sure. I thought adjustments were key in this game. Early on, Western Colorado had a ton of success creating space for their receivers. And almost every time Drew Nash dropped back to pass, he's thrown to a guy who snuck open somehow. And Pueblo really adjusted to that in the second half and started to take that away and really put more pressure on Western to run the ball. And it just really wasn't as productive in the second half. The other thing that kind of stood out down the stretch is good clock management by Phil Vigil in managing that final drive, and what a luxury it was for him to have so much confidence in his kicking game. They didn't feel like they had to try to force that ball into the end zone to win the game at the very end. They were comfortable laying up for the field goal as soon as they got like inside the 20 or the 25. And of course, Jackson Smith was money, and he has been all season for them. So real luxury for the coaches there to be able to rely on their special teams to win that at the very end of that game. So question for you, Ferg, why weren't you there?
Too busy with schoolwork, man. But I would just kind of mention though that I think that point about Western that really stands out is their inability to run the ball. When they became kind of one-dimensional, I just kind of saw how they're behind their season average in rushing. I'd kind of expect them to be a little bit more dynamic on offense than they actually were. And so kudos to that Pueblo defensive line for what they were able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though we didn't have boots on the ground there with our crew here, we did have boots on the ground, Chuck, with somebody else. Our guy AC. And AC was in the comments here. He mentioned Western gave it away. We kind of alluded, a little bit to, boy, there was some of those feels when you're up 21-0 and you find a way to not win. But Pueblo did capitalize and were able to go ahead and find what was really going to work for them in the deep shots. And, our guy AC does a great job of of documenting the games through the lens that he has there.
Top drawer.
And you see up at the top, Chuck, you're a guy who takes a fair amount of photos like I do, and he's got some nice Ratzlaff photos right up at the top there, with the one that he almost scored on, and the other one where he kind of made that slide, to get to their first score. So, nice job, AC, and I think that they're going to probably talk about this game probably a whole heck of a lot more than what we even did tonight, guys.
Yeah, no doubt. So we want to plug that while we have an opportunity. Be sure to tune in for RMAC Weekly later on this week. AC and Tanner will go in depth on this one, I am sure, and give you all their perspectives and all their insights. I know they will have a lot to say about that. So great win there for the Thunderwolves. And of course, we'll see how that shakes up the super region projections a little bit later on. So from there, we will go to the Gulf South. We had another top 25 matchup with West Florida going on the road to Delta State. And Whit, I don't know what video we have for this one. Do we have some highlights to roll?
We do, yeah. So
all right. Roll
since
the clip,
I'm kind of the Howard
then,
Cosell of our show, I will go ahead and unveil Chuck, and then we'll come back and let's talk to our guy Poe. But Chuck, before we do, something I want to point out here. Look at the yardage difference here, 475 to 310. And frankly, in this game, Chuck, before we throw it on, Chuck, West Florida put the ball on the deck like 5 times, and ends up losing 3 of them. Otherwise, there was a chance they could have run away in this one. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of that video. And you're going to go ahead and see there was times where West Florida would go ahead and kind of bring in another guy to Jackson here to go ahead and run a little bit of almost a wildcat kind of look. Just to not put so much tread, so much wear on Stokes's tires. And, you go ahead and you see they're up early, but you know what? In this game, weird thing, Garrett Ames is playing quarterback. We didn't have Cole playing in this one. And at the same time, only complete 6 passes. And then this schmaz of a deal here, they're up at that point 18 and looking like they're going to run away before halftime. But we've kind of talked a little bit about the speed that's in the Gulf South. And boy, I tell you, this is why you can never count a team like Delta out. They go ahead and they score there. And then you're going to go ahead and see as they keep taking some shots down the field. Curtis Reardon, 4 grabs for 207 yards and 3 scores for Delta. But this is where Stokes is a sneaky good runner. Marcus Stokes is for them. He scores 3 times in the game, 2 times on the ground. I thought this play was kind of the end for Delta. They go to do a screen and overthrow it, and it gets picked. And then a play later, West Florida goes ahead and punches it on in right from there. And now it's a 2-score game in the fourth quarter. Now, it looked like it was going to be just over, but Delta once again rings that bell. 6 completions, and they go ahead and they score on a play like this, and they really show that they can be trouble for teams down the field. We're trying to run the clock out here, and they don't account for the +1 and the +1 run game. Stokes decides he's going to crash land at the end there as we go ahead and try and run out the clock. I think he realized that he should not score at about the 2-yard line right before he got there. But Coach Poe, what were some of your takeaways here? This is kind of your world, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, I think watching this game, I thought it was an interesting game, and I think when the yardage disparity obviously is pretty big. Whit, I think you hit on that earlier, but I want to talk a little bit differently about this one. And I think one thing I looking outside in on both of these teams, West Florida is a team that we all have pretty high in our rankings and kind of where we see them. And one thing that disappointed me about West Florida is they were not able to put Delta State away, right? They get up early and they let them back in the game. And, that's a team I had coming out of Super Region 2. I know that, but right now they're number 3. We have them at number 3 in the country. I want to see them beat good teams, and I want to see them put good teams away. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to be important, not just in like Super Region 2, but when they go to the if they make the semifinals and the finals, you have to be able to put good teams away and not allow them to come back. We talked about it last game in Pueblo in Western Colorado, and we're talking about it here. You got to put good teams away when you have them on the ropes on the road. And if you're Delta State, man, you battled yourself back. You were down 3 scores, was it? And you battle yourself back. You tie it up. And really, you know, and the score says 51-38, but in my opinion, it's really a 7-point difference right there. But you know, you battle yourself back, and that's going to be important for a team that has playoff aspirations and want to make a run here going in the playoffs. You've got to be able to hang around. You got to be able to beat teams that maybe are better than you in the playoffs. I thought Delta State did that. So when I look at this game from the outside perspective, I thought Delta State showed me a little bit more by showing that grit and that fire to kind of compete and get themselves back into it and come back. They showed me more. I think that's going to benefit them more down the road and in the playoffs. I need to see West Florida put some teams away.
Tony, you know, you had a chance to see West Florida back a year ago, and it seems like this year there's been a bit of a maturation with what they do offensively, not just being able to throw the ball, but being able to run the ball. Do you think that this is maybe the most complete offense out there in Super Region 2? I mean, it sure seems like they're trending that way.
Yeah, in Super Region 2, I would say that that's probably a pretty fair statement. And again, part of, you know, what I like about them is, yes, they do seem to run the ball better, but you know, when you've got the kind of speed that we do, that you alluded to, you know, part of what you want to be able to do is get the ball to guys in space. And the biggest key to that is pass protection. And, you know, that was one of the things that when I saw them a couple times last year, once in person, I didn't see that. And so this year, they seem to have at least shored that up enough to where Stokes has more time and is actually able to use his skill set to be able to get the ball or distribute it, or then make the choice to be able to pull it down and go. You know, and one of the things that I agree with Coach Poe, he nailed it. I mean, for West Florida to be up 3 scores in the first half like they were, I actually put a different game on because I thought, okay, you know, West Florida's kind of got this. And plus I saw Delta State doing all those sloppy things. That's one of the things for both these teams. Like if Delta State's got, you know, real playoff aspirations and as a team that can go deep. Earlier in the year, we were picking them in games like this because that defense was so solid, because they played mistake-free, and they didn't do that here. So both these teams, I think, still have some things to work on as far as either putting a team away or playing up to what we are used to seeing from them before playoff time starts.
Ferg, do we feel that West Florida is kind of the clear-cut front runner in Super Region 2 at this point? What is kind of your take after these last few weeks and some of those bigger games?
Well, I think so. I think that when you look at, you know, they played someone in the SAC. Now, granted, you know, Lenore Ron is not as strong as we thought they would be, but still that matters. And I'm kind of waiting to see who emerges there. But, you know, out of the conferences that are out there, yeah, I think that they're definitely going to be the favorite. Especially as how explosive they are on offense. And I think I look at a game like this and I see Delta battle back, and I just think, like, when you get in conference play, like, these are coaches that know each other. They know their tendencies. They know kind of, you know, maybe I need to run something a slight wrinkle to get somebody free, and they make things happen. You know, you don't quite have that luxury in the playoffs. And I think that, you know, West Florida is going to have opportunity to get ahead on some teams and sort of do what they've been doing against some of the GSC. And if they have to, you know, nurse a lead, they can kind of do that, even if they give up points.
Right. Chuck, let me ask you, kind of what is your take? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, this is West Florida's best start actually in program history. And when we look at this here with them, it feels like this is Coach Noble's maybe his best group and maybe his best work yet. And I mean, what is your take on where they are at right now with him at the helm? Because it's taken them a few years to kind of get where they want to be, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you put things in perspective, it still is kind of amazing to think this program's only a decade old. I mean, their first season on the field was in 2016. So the trajectory of this program is far outside the normal. And, Coach Nobles is still very early into his head coaching career. His coaching career generally is a very young guy.
Right.
So, he's still, learning and developing as we go through this. So for them to be where they're at right now, I think it's very impressive. Now, I think if we go back to the preseason and we looked at the talent that we knew they had on this roster, some of us did have very high expectations of West Florida coming into this season. I actually picked them to win the national championship. So they kind of are where I thought they could be, but they're performing very well. And I know, Poe kind of did the coach, got to tear him down a little bit because there's a lot that I always call this kind of a coach's victory because, you go on the road, you beat a quality team, you score 51 points. You're never going to apologize for that. But there's a lot you take away that you will tear him down on. So,
Right.
Poe as a coach was doing that. I would build him up a little bit later on in the week too. They are a very, very good football team. They just have to focus on all the fundamentals and eliminate some mistakes. And I think the sky is the limit for West Florida this year.
Well, and now they've won, 2 of the last 3 weeks they've won on the road because they won at, in Livingston, Alabama, at West Alabama. So they've beaten 2 teams that were top 20 on the road. And frankly, for a good portion of the game, looked like they could have been quite a bit the better team. So if they pace like this and all of a sudden everybody's got to go to West Florida in that super region, look out. They're in a good spot. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go then to our third of the spotlight games, which was also a top 25. Now, Findlay's been in the top 25 since about week 3. Northwood jumped into the top 25 this past week. The folks at Northwood had said it was the first time since 2007 that the Timberwolves had made the national polls. So, big moment for them. Unfortunately, it probably only lasts a week here, but we'll see how things shake out. But nice to see a game of this caliber in the GMAC. I know D1R and the crew doing their small college Saturday was on site to give this the pub that it deserved, and they did a great job with their production and talked with the coaches and lots of people there and had a great experience showcasing the GMAC. So why don't we see what we have to take a look at, and then we'll unpack this one.
yeah, and notice on the Chuck, before we jump into the highlights, Jaden Farmer, if you hadn't have a chance to watch Findlay at 6 foot, 245-pound battering ram of a running back, and their offensive line plays a physical style here where they can go ahead and get him yards. And they started off quick in this one, getting the score, and then right before half they go ahead and they're up 14-0 and kind of controlling the action on their way to getting what I felt was a fairly comfortable lead. They're at 17-3 here in the back half of the game, and Northwood's trying to punch back, and yards weren't really easy to come by. Their water got shut off in the running game for sure. And then you go ahead and see what was one of the big problems that Northwood had right here, protecting the quarterback. You look at Findlay, they got to him 6 times in this contest, and go ahead and plays like that. And it's really hard to get some continuity there with the offense. And little razzle dazzle kind of play here when you go ahead and you see a little bit of the end around there. And Findlay up by 2 scores felt real comfortable to me watching this game. Now, there's a tip ball here that goes for a score, and I'm sure Findlay's just shaking their head at that point. Playing as solid as they had throughout the game, they're not a flashy team. They're very a meat and potatoes type of attack. And, they're trying to put it away here with 2 minutes left, and you're going to see Harrison go ahead and find his man on the score, kind of right up the middle there with the tight end shot. And they limited Northwood to 234 yards in this contest, get to the quarterback 6 times. And I felt that they were just a more physical football team in watching this game. And there was times in the second quarter where they were just doing one run play after another, just kind of marching on down the field. And, Tony, I'm going to kind of come to you on it, but, I was slow to arrive at Findlay. I'll be very honest. Now, this was kind of the type of game I wanted to see them play because I really thought Northwood was coming on, Tony, and I thought Findlay kind of had their way with them in this one.
Yeah, and that's funny. We had this game in the pick'em, and I think you and I both took Northwood because we kind of felt like the Timberwolves were on the come a little bit more.
Right.
And as soon as I made the pick, I sat there and thought to myself, is this another one of those instances where you kind of have to show me that you can get over the hump before you actually earn the pick? And we had another game like that a couple of weeks ago where, I think some of us stayed with, all right, well, who's actually won in this situation before? Well, in the last 20 years, Findlay's done a lot more winning in these situations than Northwood has. And this game looked a lot like it. I got a chance to watch a good chunk of this game as well. And my take was very similar to yours. Findlay was far more physical, particularly on offense. But I was really impressed with Findlay's defense as well. Northwood didn't have a lot of room to breathe. And even when they would, say, if Hamby had enough time to find somebody, boy, they'd close on him quick. Or he had enough time to get a ball out that maybe was off balance and wasn't quite as accurate as he wanted it to be. And there was no running game for Northwood in this game. So, I mean, it was a very, very much a trench advantage for Findlay in this game, and they leveraged that pretty much throughout.
Let me ask you, Ferg, coming on into this one, I feel like Findlay, we've kind of had them a little bit off the radar. They're not a team that draws a lot of attention themselves. They're not some high-flying operation. Do you get kind of those same feels coming into this, Ferg?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about who else is in the GMAC, right? I think we've had a lot of attention on Ashland, right, and secondary attention on Tiffin. And you look at who they play out of conference and everything, they just sort of stood out. And Finley's been kind of under the radar for some time. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I just now Chuck, did you get a chance to check out any of this yourself, and kind of what was your take, buddy?
Yeah, I watched the whole game last night before I went to bed, actually. I thought in general, you guys talked about Findlay's physicality. I thought in general the game looked very physical on both sides. Now, Findlay, to Tony's point, I think Findlay had a trench advantage in this game, but it was physical on both sides. The thing that really stood out to me, and that I think is pretty vintage to Findlay, is that they will force their opponent to make more mistakes than they will make. And Findlay had a few mistakes, but Northwood had a ton in this game. And when you make mistakes against Findlay, they make you pay for them. They had a lot of points off of turnovers. When Northwood tried things like an onside kick, they didn't get it. Findlay goes down and scores. When they got a turnover deep in their territory, they scored. When they got a fumbled punt, after Findlay was punting from deep in their own territory, flip the field, they go down and score. They make you pay for the mistakes that you make. That was a big part of how they won the UIndy game that I saw way back in week 1. So, yeah, Findlay's just the kind of team that you cannot afford to make mistakes against.
Well,
Chuck,
and
I just want to throw something else out. I just want to throw something out there too, what Chuck is saying, because like Findlay limited the number of times that Northwood really got to touch the ball, because Northwood really couldn't do much on offense. And so when you do that with a team like Findlay and they can run the ball like that, I mean, you really got to take your shots when you can. And they got punished. The Timberwolves got punished that way.
Well, and there was a question that Joe brings up here, which I think is kind of interesting. I think it kind of plays into why we weren't totally on the bandwagon here. Absolutely undefeated means something, but 7-3 against Wayne State.
Yep.
16-14 against Hillsdale, 27-20 against Ohio Dominican. Yep. These aren't teams that are going to be mentioned in the regional ranking discussion. Let's be honest. Yeah. So these are those kind of things where we get mixed signals. How good are they? They had one really good win with Indy, and then you have games like that. I think they went ahead and reestablished how good they can be in a game like this.
Yeah. And just because they beat Findlay in the first game of beat Indy in the first game of the season, and this is no disrespect to Findlay, but I mean, sometimes you ask yourself, well, if they played each other 10 times now, right, who's going to win? What are the records going to look like? Now, sure. I personally, even at this stage of the season, think that that Indy would have the better of those 10 games, but I'm not as convinced that it's as one-sided as maybe I would have thought a month ago.
Fair enough. And to those asking about the undefeated piece, absolutely. And Findlay's going to get rewarded for that when the regional rankings are coming on out.
They will.
because no one can take that away from them being 9-0 right now.
For sure. All right. Well, that'll get us to the end of the kind of the opening segment where we unpack those top 3, top 4 games. So let's kind of go around the country and round up a few others. The other top 25 matchup was Angelo State going up to Central Washington. That actually did end up being a 1-score game in the third quarter until the Wildcats pulled away and took care of that one. So they keep rolling with a 38-21 win. And Whit, if I'm not mistaken, Western Oregon and Midwestern was a 0-0 game at halftime.
It was, unless they had the stream wrong when I was checking in, but yes, which I always leave ourselves open to that. But yeah, I mean, Western Oregon's had some of those same kind of moments, guys, that we talked about with Findlay, where, you know, you go, okay, are they this team or are they the team that beat UTPB? And then the second half, they clearly took care of business. Yep.
All right, well, let's go to the next one. K-Ferg, I think we got a couple here for you. JCSU guts out a win against, Fayetteville's always a tough out. So give us a couple talking points about that, and then you have to tell us about Mr. Curtis Allen's day at Bluefield State.
Well, that was a game that if you liked offense, you probably weren't watching if you were watching the Fayetteville game for sure. And it took the fourth quarter for some kind of fireworks to happen. Early in the game, you had a situation where the punter, it seemed like the punter just made a decision to do his own play, and JCSU made him pay for that. And then the scoring stopped until the fourth quarter, and Fayetteville State took the lead, and you're like, 3 minutes left. And JCSU went down the field, even converted on a 4th and 9 with Kelvin Durham, the quarterback, running the ball, and then they punched it in and took that game. It was you could have waited till like the last 5 minutes to watch this game, and you would have got the same effect if you had like watched the other 55 minutes of the game. So, but I think it's going to set up, potentially some consideration for tiebreakers if things don't work out like they should. JCSU just needs to win next week against Livingstone, and they're in the championship game. But wait, we've heard that last year, so we'll see against their rival Livingstone. On the other hand, Virginia Union, all you really need to know here, Curtis Allen broke the school record that was just broken like a couple of years ago with Jada Byers, rushed for 369, 368, something like that, yards and 5 touchdowns, and continues to be the nation's leader in rushing and in scoring. Just complete domination by VUU in this game.
Yep. Curtis Allen now for the season is averaging over 200 yards per game. Ugh. That's a really important threshold when you start looking at like Harlan Hill type category to be over 200 yards per game. Huge night for him. Obviously, no one's going to accuse Bluefield State of being a defensive juggernaut, but still, any conference opponent, when you can put up those kind of numbers, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So from there, we will go to the PSAC. A couple of important results here. Actually, an out-of-conference there. Rare late-season out-of-conference game. There's backstory to that with Mercyhurst and all that. But Cal gets a win over a freshly ranked Frostburg State. Keeps Cal's playoff hopes alive. Now, that is out-of-conference for Frostburg. So in terms of AQs and winning the MEC, they're still very much in play for that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. And on the other side, Kutztown and East Stroudsburg. Thought East Stroudsburg might be the team that could challenge Kutztown a little bit. Nope. And that's pretty much all there is to say about that. So Kutztown just keeps right on rolling. So, and then the Rock also back keeping their role going since they lost a couple earlier in the season that we didn't quite expect. They beat Clarion. And there is actually still a path for the Rock to be in the PSAC championship game. It's not a great opportunity, but it does still exist. Nonetheless, I think if they keep winning their games, we will see them in the playoffs. And Poe, let's throw this then to your territory because we had a couple things going on. How about an OT thriller there for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, Wingate was down with a couple minutes to play in the fourth quarter, had to score a touchdown to force overtime, get the ball first in overtime, go in and take the lead, convert the extra point. Lenore Ryan answers back and then go for two there at the end of that first overtime, turn it over, and Wingate seals a big victory at home in a back and forth game there late in that one. And then the other side, that one, Newberry 24-21 over Anderson. That game was 14-14 late and some late action there, but they squeaked it out. Just didn't Anderson. It felt like whoever had the ball last was going to score in that one, guys, and it was back and forth. But Newberry found a way to win on the road. It looked like it had a great crowd, great environment. So big win for Newberry, setting up a big matchup this week for the Wolves with Carson Newman.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that develops into a rivalry there with two of the South Carolina teams in the SAC there. Let's stay in the SAC there. So we had Carson Newman getting a win over Catawba to keep themselves in the championship race here.
Yeah, and interestingly about this one, Catawba had the ball driving into what would have been a tying score or potential to shrink this lead or to tie it rather if they converted the extra point and threw an interception on about the 6-yard line going in with under a minute left to play there. So big win for Carson Newman to get the stop and Catawba just falling short there at the end. So and then the other side of that one, Valdosta State, we talked about it, guys. Valdosta State's going to get some people here late in the season. They're playing much better coming out of that bye week a couple weeks ago. We've seen it. And we saw it here on Saturday, 45-35 over West Alabama. Third loss in a row for West Al. So a tough stretch right here for the Tigers and a nice win for Valdosta at home in Gulf South play.
Yeah, they were a top 15 team just a couple weeks ago, and they will finish 0-3 in GSC play. So, Whit, how about a couple in your two conferences?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it. Can Northern State win a game like this on the road because they're a great team at home, that whole environment, and they were kind of chasing on this one for most of the game and most of the day. And on the other side, Augustana's defense played very well against an offense for Northern that had become a top 5 nationally, and Augie went ahead and they looked pretty steady-handed offensively, and really just kind of played a better football game. And Northern made a few key mistakes, then got themselves down where they were trying to chase a few scores, and they couldn't really get things going in their normal run game. And a big win for Augustana as they stay unbeaten right there. On the other side, Northwest just continues to keep on rocking. This is not a bad Emporia State football team, and they went ahead and handled them and really kept their number down as well. That Northwestern defense, keep coming back to it. They could be trending towards being one of the top defenses in Division II, and something that's really going to be a thing that we may be talking about come playoff time as well.
All right, from there, let's head up to the GLIAC. Tony, Davenport getting a really nice win here over Saginaw.
Yeah, and they did it as this week's winner of the award for the Matt Witwicky Pass Completion Efficiency Index. They did this with only 5 completions. 5 completions. So, and I mean, this was funny thing about this game is, you watch the interview with Coach McEwen going into the break, and he said, "Hey, we want this game to be grimy, and we'll just drag everybody into the gutter with us and see what happens." And that's pretty much what happened in this game. I mean, Saginaw had the better of it offensively throughout most of this game, but they were -3 in the turnover margin, had a punt block return for a touchdown, and had a drive to cut the lead down late and have a chance to try and come back and ran a gadget play that ended up in a pick. And it just, I mean, they just couldn't win ugly again in this one. And Davenport was able to defend the home field and get a nice win. And then, Ashland just kind of keeps chugging along. We've been talking about some of these other GMAC teams like Findlay and Tiffin and even Northwood a little bit here. But all of a sudden, Ashland, I think, is 8-1, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of keep chugging along. And Walsh has had a nice season. I mean, we don't normally think of Walsh as being a a 6-win team most seasons, but they're already there. I mean, this was only their third loss on the campaign. So Ashland did what they had to do to hold serve.
Yep. Welsh beat them by 2 touchdowns last year, so that was not one to be taken lightly.
Right.
By the way, 59-yard field goal for Ashland at the end of the first half in that game. Manaki Watanabe, 59-yard field goal with room to spare. Huge kick for them, was a huge momentum lifter for them.
School record, I think, right?
School record, yep, 59 yards. All right, Whit, let's kind of bring this to a close. Then we have one from the RMAC and one from the GMAC.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the GAC.
Yeah, and as we go ahead and we take a look, Shadron, we've kind of been thinking, okay, is this team going to keep on stacking wins like they have been? Because they're kind of the sneaky team right now. If you take a look at it, out in what is now SR4, and on the other side, South Dakota Mines does not have the season that they were hoping to have, but Shadron taking care of business there, and on the other side, East Central. Boy, we don't know who they are week to week, but at the same time, Southern Arkansas pretty much had themselves a playoff spot lined up 2 weeks ago, and have given up a 40 spot each of the last 2 games, and are probably playing themselves out of a spot like that. So it's wild the way we think that right when we think we start to have all these things figured out, and this is how it's going to play out from here. We start seeing some results like that, and it makes you really know that you got to wait for these things to really happen, because those were some surprising results, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt. But, Shadron really we haven't really talked about them a whole lot, but they have had a very impressive season. They lost that opener to Kearney, and they have won every game since then. So congrats to them. So we still have a lot to get through here, because we have picks to make, and we have to talk about regional rankings that are going to come out tomorrow. So how about a mid-show snack break here? What do you got for us?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I haven't eaten. That's what I got for us. But per usual, guys, for those tuning on in, if you have any thoughts about, what are you going to do with your life? Maybe things haven't turned out for you as exactly like how you hoped. Well, sorry to hear that, but you can go ahead and open up a Boston's Pizza and Chicken and change your whole deal.
That's right.
And maybe we'll even stop on in. Maybe we won't. But go ahead, feel free to go ahead on their website and look for franchising opportunities. And we're always looking for kind of something new that's being offered by bosses. And, well, what's being offered, Whit? Let me tell you. We've got Parmesan garlic breadsticks, all the rage right now. Ferg, thumbs up, thumbs down for you? Is that kind of your jam or not really?
Especially with marinara sauce.
Yeah, see, and Ferg's always the one I come to as kind of my litmus test here on the food thing, because if I ask myself, no one cares. But then on the other side, we have dessert pizza. Now, guys, the only thing better than real pizza is just going ahead and being able to have a dessert angle with icing on it. But they just got done promoting this. They're going to have it around for another few weeks, where this is kind of a pumpkin spice version of dessert pizza. Ferg, are you much of a pumpkin spice guy?
And I tried PSL pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks. I wouldn't care. I didn't care for it. I don't think I would care for this either.
Figured that. I should have figured that you would have some type of drink to go with that. But
he had a drink and an acronym.
Right. Well, I'm a mark for dessert pizza, and that's something that Bosses has. So they had a promo going on where you could throw it in for like $5 along with a pizza order. Or maybe I just fell for it, Chuck. I don't know. But moving on, we have the games of interest. And you know what, guys, this is an interesting slate here where, these games didn't end up on our pick'em. But there's games that are still pretty darn important here as we finish out the year. Chuck, what are some of the ones that catch your eye right off the bat?
Well, the most important one that jumps out to me here is Assumption and Bentley, because the AQ bid for the Northeast 10 is on the line in that game. Assumption is 6-0 in the league. Bentley is 5-1. So Assumption can win the league outright and take the AQ bid if they win this. And if Bentley wins it, they'll be tied on record. And the Falcons would have the head-to-head. So then they get the AQ bid. So that is a playoff spot up for grabs.
Right.
We will know when that game ends who's going to the playoffs. So that's certainly one that stands out to me.
How about Poe? I'm going to ask you, Valdosta there. I know, Poe, that you're carrying the water for Delta, but is there any chance that Valdosta gets them?
It's gonna. You got me on that way. No, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I mean, Valdosta is playing much better than we saw earlier in the year. We said they're going to spoil some seasons, and misery loves company. So if you're Valdosta, it's a big game. It's a big opportunity for you. Delta State, what's intriguing for them is they've got to win this game, and in my opinion, they got to win it pretty handedly, make their case for the playoff push here coming up. So I think there's a lot to play for on both sides of this one.
Now, Chuck, didn't you also tell me Edinburgh still kind of hanging on a bit in the conversation in the PSAC with that one, right?
There is a path for Edinburgh to get to the PSAC championship game. So they're 4-1 in the PSAC West. So they need a little bit of help because they lack the head-to-head with IUP, but there is still a path for them. So if they could somehow beat the Rock, that's why this one's important.
And the Pueblo Mines game, despite the fact that Mines doesn't appear to be on a playoff trajectory, I think it's still kind of an interesting game because let's be honest, there was many years where this was kind of the biggest game in that conference. And it may not be this year, but I still give Mines a bit of a puncher's chance in this, despite the fact, that they have 3 losses in conference and frankly, haven't been able to kind of punch up with a team like Western. But, Pueblo's coming off of a big emotional win.
Yep.
That's not an easy place to go win at, in Golden. Oh, boy. Okay, so Poe.
Congrats, Poe.
Thanks, buddy.
Our guy Dykstra, who is our tech guy, do you see behind the 7-0 the dragon there?
Is that a I couldn't tell if that was like a Thanksgiving scape or what the hell is that?
It's Dykstra doing the art thing, so we have to we deal with it. But I guess he's in the comment.
What's really impressive is the 7-0. So I'm just
that blew everyone's minds because we figured that you would end the season under 500. So
so did I, buddy. So did I.
But no, and then Ferg 6-1. You guys must have been sharing notes or something.
Yeah, the only difference was somebody was going to be 7-0. It just depended on Western and Pueblo.
That's right.
Well, I remember you guys tricked me into taking Frostburg there, and I took the bait, and I decided that
we were all bending your arm and everything.
I decided Angelo was going to be up for the task, and when I saw that they were down early and that they weren't running their offense the way I wanted them to run their offense, I kind of figured that was going to be a loss there. So we are where we are. But well, guys, let's go ahead, kind of move on ahead, and we're going to take a look next, Chuck. And give me 1 sec here, guys, to line up our first game. And that's what we got. Chuckster, I'm starting with you.
Oh boy. Well, first of all, the last time these two played in Ashland in 2023 was probably the best football game I watched that whole season. It went to 4 overtimes. It was just a remarkable football game.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling with this one. Ashland has really had the upper hand in this series. I think they've won like 10 out of the last 12. Very good at home. Ashland seems to have a really good answer for minimizing everything Findlay likes to do offensively. I think this is a very low-scoring game. I think this could be like a 17-13 kind of a game. I think it's very close. I think it's very low-scoring. It's a toss-up either way. I'm going to go with Ashland at home.
Fair enough. Ferg, which way are you going, buddy?
I'm going Ashland.
Undefeated Findlay, and no one's taken them just yet. Tony, how do you see it, buddy?
Yeah, no, believe me, that is exactly where my head is too. It's like, okay, I allowed myself not to be swayed by what they've put together on the field so far this year, and took Northwood last week. But like I talked about earlier in the show, Northwood kind of still is in a prove me state. I don't think we think of that of Ashland at this point. Ashland's at home. Ashland, I think, can match the physicality of Findlay. This is going to be a hell of a ball game. Don't kid yourself. I'm going to take Ashland. But Findlay winning this game would not surprise me in the least.
Dragon, you're coming off your 7-0. This is this is a victory lap that we're not used to you taking. So, which way are you going on here? People are all of a sudden listening.
Yeah. Well, shoot. Look at the overall record.
No pressure. No pressure.
Sometimes you hit a home run when you don't mean to. No,
we gave that consideration, but yes, keep going.
No, I saw Ashland play earlier this year, and I watched a little bit of the Findlay game. What's intriguing to me is just kind of the way Findlay can control the ball, run the football, control the clock, and really make it tough on you. I'm going to take Findlay in this one. I think, Chuck, you're right. It's going to be a low scoring game. But I like Findlay's ability to control the football, control the clock. I think it's prime for the picking if you're Findlay. So give me the Oilers in this one.
I thought all this year I would be getting into this game. I'd be taking Ashland. You know what? I think Findlay probably won me over last week. And you know what? I'm going to go with the hot hand here. I'm going with Poe. I'm taking Findlay.
He wants to go
next
7-0.
game up. Western Colorado doesn't exactly get a break.
Nope.
They're going to Chadron next. Ferg, which way you going, buddy?
Western for redemption.
Western with the pick. Tony, how do you see it?
Yeah, boy. The hangover is what scares me about this game. I think if this were straight up, having both played teams they were favored against last week, not a big beat 'em up physical type game like they had against Pueblo, I would take Western in a second. I'm still going to take them here, but I'm much more skittish about it just with the Pueblo hangover.
Chuck, any thoughts on Chadron at home, or do you think Western bounces back?
Well, I have big thoughts about taking Chadron here, mostly for the same reasons that Tony outlined. But I do have faith in Western. I think that's a very talented team. I think they're going to be just a little bit more physical than Chadron. But I would not at all be surprised if the Eagles win this game. But I'll go with the Mountaineers.
Coach Poe, I feel like you're getting ready to go against the grain again.
Nah, negative. Look, you guys are talking about this hangover stuff. Western Colorado's going to come out and absolutely hammer them. Look, you give up a game like they just gave up this past week. You're pissed off. You're mad, and you're ready to go back out there and take it out on somebody. Give me Western Colorado in this one.
Paul, I'm ready to go buckle my chin strap and get my ankles taped after all that energy.
Let's go.
I'm going to go with Western as well. I kind of need to see it from Chadron in a game like this. Maybe we will, but I'm going to take Western also. Virginia State and Virginia Union. Ferk, we're starting with you on this one. Unpack kind of what we have in front of us here.
Well, you gotta remember here, Virginia State's actually 6-2 in Division II play because they played an FCS team, so it makes them look a little bit better there. They've done pretty well this season. They started a new quarterback, RJ Matthews, who is a dual threat. He can run, he can pass. They've got some really good defensive line as well. I tell you, when you look at a game like this, what really stands out is outside of Curtis Allen, because that just goes without saying, is, I wonder what can VUU do on offense with RJ Rosales, another RJ, that can keep the VSU defense honest. And honestly, that's where Virginia State's had some issues, is in the secondary. So, in this one, even without Curtis Allen, I still would have VUU as my pick in this one. But hey, stranger things have happened because they did happen last year.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, how do you see this one, buddy?
Yeah, and I rode the Virginia State train quite well last year, and they earned my nod in a lot of instances. With the flip side of that being is, okay, the one loss was to FCS Norfolk State, but the Fighting Michael Vicks, that's the only win that those guys have this year. So I don't know how good of an FCS program that really is. I just think Virginia Union's too much. Their ability to run the ball and control not only the line of scrimmage, but just the pace of the game is going to be too much for Virginia State, particularly on the road here. So I like Virginia Union.
Chuck, how do you see it, buddy?
Yeah, I like Virginia Union. Different year, different team, but Virginia State won this game a year ago, and even though Virginia Union atoned for it in the championship game, this is still the regular season matchup. It's a huge rivalry game. I think that probably doesn't sit well with the Panthers. They're at home. I like them in this one.
Poe, how you got it, buddy?
Virginia Union can run the football, and they can run it really damn well. Give me damn Virginia Union to win this one, and I don't think it's close.
Who roasted you a few years ago? Was that Virginia State?
No, it was Virginia Union.
No,
it was the
Virginia
punter. It was the punter. I figured out how to get on camp cut or whatever the hell you call it.
I figured your pick might have some of that to do with something, but yeah.
Hey, it did. I did think about it, but I didn't. I chose to be the bigger person here.
That's okay. I see how red you've gotten just done talking about it, but I like the role Virginia Union's on. I'm taking them here as well. Carson Newman and Newberry. Poe, I'm starting with you, buddy. In this one here, there's a fair amount on the line here. Both of these guys are going to be on the piece of paper tomorrow for regional rankings and everything else.
Yeah, and there's conference championship implications in this one as well. I think it's a really interesting game. Is Carson Newman? They've kind of a couple losses there that they really didn't show us stuff offensively. I felt like the offense sputtered at times this year. They really haven't put people away. And for Newberry, they've just found ways to win. And I don't really know how to describe it. They just find ways to win, whether it's late in ball games or whatnot. But they're just always around at the end of it. I think that's the one thing that's just hanging. When I look at this game, that's the one thing that I'm looking at is Newberry finds ways to win, and sometimes Carson Newman struggles late down the stretch. I think Carson Newman's a very good football team. I just don't know that they're there yet, whereas I think Newberry is primed to take this one. So give me the Wolves in this one.
Boy, before the year, I would not have guessed that Newberry would be at where they're at right now. But Ferg, who do you got?
Oh man, this is a tough one. Oh gosh, I'm gonna go also with Newberry.
Okay, Tony, how do you see it, buddy?
Yeah, you said we didn't. You don't think that we were going to have Newberry in this spot. I don't know how many of us had Carson Newman sitting here at this spot really either coming into the season. So with that said, though, every time Carson Newman's involved in a game, I always get him wrong. So I don't know that it matters what I do in this one. So I'll take Newberry just because they're at home. And I think for the same reason that Poe talked about. They're one of those teams that finds a way to win. But yeah, I don't feel good about it.
Chuck, how do you see this one, buddy?
I guess I will go against the grain here a little bit. I'm going to go with Carson Newman to win this game.
Chuck.
So first thing to keep in mind, the Sacks AQ bid is on the line in this game. The winner of this game does get the Sacks AQ bid, even though there's still a week to go after this, although this is also the end of the regular season for Newberry. It feels like the cleanest thing to happen for Super Region 2 in the SAC would be for Newberry to win, bump their record to 9-1. Carson Newman probably falls out of the playoffs. And the way the SAC has been this year, whatever the quickest and cleanest path is, it ain't going that way. It's going to be a mess. So I am going to take Carson Newman to win this game at Newberry.
I'm also taking Carson Newman here. I think, Newberry's coming off of a really tight contest with Anderson this last week where I thought they were going to drop that game. I was watching a little bit at the end. And I feel like Carson Newman really has to prove that right here and now because they're going to run out of time otherwise. So I'm taking Carson Newman myself, and what should be a heck of a ball game. Moving on, Western Oregon and Angelo State. Now, guys, Angelo State is with this last defeat. Boy, I'll be honest, after the way they started the season, we didn't see them getting to 3 losses at this point after 9 weeks. But they're well down now and not in the top 10 conversation in their super region. But they have a home game here, and Western Oregon is still in the mix. Ferg, how do you see it? Yeah.
Man, this is a tough one because Western has really surprised a lot of people. I would have to think that Angelo is going to continue their win streak against Western in this one. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Fair enough. Tony, do you think Western, do they stay in the mix here and keep on rocking?
Well, and to further complicate this, one of Western's losses was to a D1 team too. So they're D2. They're 7-1.
Yep. Well, they're 6-1 because they had an NAI game, but yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, and that's the thing, though, is when you look at the 6 wins, I mean, okay, they got Permian Basin, but man, that loss to WT, even though it was weeks ago, just still kind of hangs with you a little bit. And I just happened to go on the road to Angelo. Angelo's going to have that same, I'm going to borrow Coach Poe. They're going to be pissed off because I think they feel like they could have hung with Central Wash better than they did. God, I don't know. This just seems like the game. But I think back to Angelo this year. Every time they've had big games, they've kind of come up empty. I'm going to take the Rams at home. But, yeah, boy, this is another one. This is another one that scares the crap out of me.
Chuck, do you have Western Oregon win on the road here?
I think Angelo salvages their season a little bit here. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Poe?
Angelo, don't let me down on this one, boys. Give me Angelo State. Every time I pick them, I get stuck. Don't let me down. Battle back and get one here for me.
You know what? As much as I would like to take Western Oregon in this one, I just feel like they're a better ball club at home, and Angelo typically plays pretty good in their own yard. I'm going to take Angelo also, despite the temptation right there.
It is tempting, too.
This is a tough one here. Now, Michigan Tech still in the playoff mix. Grand Valley would be a pretty long option at this point with the 3 defeats. Michigan Tech, trying to make it in the dance at Grand Valley. Ferg, how do you see it, buddy? Who are you taking?
I'm going to just stick with Grand Valley in this one.
Fair enough. Tony, which direction are you heading on this one, buddy?
Well, we'll spend a lot of time on this one, probably on GLIAC Weekly this week, for a whole host of reasons. I won't steal the thunder from the weekly show, so everybody who wants to hear what the rest of those thoughts are, they'll have to tune in on Wednesday. I think the part that scares me about this game, if I'm Tech, is I just gave up 390 through the air to Roosevelt. And the teams that have given Tech the biggest amount of fits are the ones that can throw the ball. And if Grand Valley can pass protect, they can definitely throw the ball. I just don't know if defensively on the outside and on the back end, Tech can keep up with what Grand Valley's got talent-wise on the receiving core. This is actually going to be a pretty interesting ball game, and I think Tech's going to try and monopolize time of possession and shorten the number of possessions for each team. I just think Grand Valley, I think they're too explosive myself. But again, this is another one that's just I don't think this is just an easy Grand Valley pick like we traditionally would think it would be. At least not with this year's 2 teams.
Chuck, who do you got, my friend?
Yeah, I think Tony, just the way he just kind of finished that is what's rattling around in my brain is that this is not the layup pick for Grand Valley it normally would be, but nonetheless, I will still go with the Lakers here.
Poe, do you have any thoughts about going against the grain, my friend?
Nope. Give me Grand Valley in this one, guys.
I think what Michigan Tech's been able to do with some of the quarterback run game and some things of that sort recently, I think we have a hard time with that with Grand Valley up front. I think Grand Valley is still – I don't think that there has been any give up here. I think they're still playing with plenty of pride, and I think you saw that the way they came on this last week. I'll take Grand Valley as well, which leads us to our final game, Minnesota State against Augustana, what one would think would be Augustana's toughest test of the year. Coming into this, they had beaten Sioux Falls, come on back in that game, and then they beat Northern State, where I thought they were in the driver's seat for pretty much most of that contest. Let's go ahead, Ferg. You're hiding, or either that, or you're showing me the map. I don't know which.
He's grabbing his IH. In Hoffner we trust, IHWT sign.
So, Ferg, are you taking the road team here?
I'm taking the road team here. Let me tell you why I'm taking the road team.
Well, we were hoping you would.
The one thing that really kind of gives me a little bit of comfort is, Augie's going to have to shut down the run game for Minnesota State, and they kind of give up quite a bit of yards on the ground. And so, to me, I think that could easily turn a game like this, where I think we had some concerns about Minnesota State a couple weeks ago and injuries and things like that. I think it actually kind of levels the playing field when you have that running game that they're so used to having. So I'm going to go with the Mavericks in this one.
It looks like there's a whole lot in the comments who are thinking the Mavericks as well. Tony, how do you see this one, buddy?
Well, there have been two games earlier this year where Augustana was at home, and I didn't take them, and I got hosed both times. And so with that in mind, I think I'll take Minnesota State.
We have 2 Minnesota State so far. Chuck,
tread carefully, guys. Tread carefully. Tread carefully. I'm just telling you.
Well, when I
just changed that. I just changed that literally on the fly. I came into the show thinking I got to pick Augie, and I just
when I'm there in person, I'm sure I'll hear about it no matter how it turns out.
I'm sure you will, and tell him I'll buy him some bosses and call it a day.
Chuck, how do you see this one? Do you think Augie, have they shown you enough yet, Chuck, for you to take him in a big game like this against Mankato?
I went with Northern because, they kind of wooed me with the performance against Moorhead the week before, and I kind of worried that maybe Augie's going to hit a point somewhere in the season here where they kind of start to run out of gas a little bit, but they haven't. I think they got a little bit of a mid to late season break there where they had some weaker opponents in the bye week, and I think Augie's right where they want to be. So I'm going to go with the Vikings to keep this going. I think that they've won lots of different games in lots of different ways. I think if it gets high scoring, they're comfortable winning that type of game. If it's low scoring slugfest, I think they're comfortable with that. If it comes down to the very end, we really know that they're comfortable with that. So I just like their ability to win different types of games and doing whatever it takes to get there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Vikings.
Coach Poe, where we're coming to you, coming off a 7-0 week. People all of a sudden looking at you like this guy is the man. He knows it all. What do you got here?
Well, I think, both these teams have battled injury throughout the year, right? They both had injuries. They both had to figure it out. They both have had to adapt. And I think this is a big game. It's on the road. You're going to say Minnesota State is not, they're not going to win this football game. Augie's at home. However, they've got Hoffner. And coaching in big games, late games, injuries, all that stuff adds up on the road late in the season. Give me Minnesota State in this one, guys.
Does anybody remember who ended Augustana's season in the playoffs last year? Ooh. What do you have, Ferg? Yep, Hoffner and company did, yes. And in a game where Augustana, frankly, I thought had it in hand for about 3 quarters. And I think Augustana, while both teams do not have the starting quarterback that they started the season with, or played the first half of the year with, for that matter, I think Augustana's done a heck of a job adjusting to all of that. Their defense has come along. I think the way that this season shaped out for Augustana, not being really front loaded with tough teams at the start, has helped them with an inexperienced group where they've been able to go ahead and really figure it out along the way. And I have Augustana winning this game. I'm not convinced the Mankato or the offense, without Trayshawn Watson as a downfield threat, I have a concern that offense doesn't quite have enough to win a game like this. So if they do, I'll hear about it, but that's okay. I'm taking Augustana in this contest.
All right, and that will round out the Super 7 picks. Before we move into the final segment, which will be the Super Region 1 projections, I did want to bring this up real quick. Minor correction, Carson Newman also has to beat Tusculum to get the auto bid. I will accept your word. Inkblot also said the same thing. Newberry's post-game article said that the winner of that game gets the auto bid, but I will trust Carson Newman Sports Info because they do a tremendous job down there in Mossy Creek. So minor correction there for my faux pas. So Whit, let's take a look at what we expect to see tomorrow. It's usually late afternoon, early evening when those regional rankings come out. We're going to go through this region by region. And this is going to be our kind of best guess at what we think the committee will land on. So Whit, this is primarily going to be a deep dive review of kind of all the data that we sifted through since the games ended yesterday. Before we kind of walk through what we think this looks like, any other kind of commentary or lead-in that you want to mention about what we're going to look at here?
Yeah, for those that are new to this, hold on tight. There's just a whole lot of moving parts with this. But essentially tomorrow, we will not get the alphabetized version of the 10 best teams in each of the 4 super regions. We will get the real 10, and they will have them in order. But keep in mind, and I always say this, always look at this as if the season ended today. What would it look like? These are not projections for how is it going to look when the playoffs start. So this is each week you have a new resume. These are not standings. So you could get jumped or fall, however you want to look at it, because your resume is new every week. So I want to drive that point home for anyone who's brand new to this. And Chuck, that's kind of what you, and for those who don't know, Chuck and I kind of go to a next level of kind of an exercise where he and I on a Sunday morning will go ahead and literally look right down the numbers and go ahead and see what we think it will look like. Keep in mind, these are just our own projections. We're not on the committees or anything. But this is kind of how we would see it after he and I collaborated.
Yeah. And just to reiterate kind of what you said there, remember a lot of these variables can change week to week. The one that always jumps out to me is that column with the wins against teams that are over 500. That's not necessarily something that will just go up if you beat a team that's over 500. It could go down because if some of those opponents have results that change that. And then, of course, records, KPI, SOS, and all that stuff. So we'll start with Super Region 1. Whit, I think you and I both felt that of the 4, this was probably the cleanest. And I think the only thing that we really had some question about was kind of the 3 teams in the middle there, IUP, California, and Slippery Rock, because we have a little bit of a convoluted this team beat that team type of scenario. So there could be some changes there. But 1 through 4, we feel pretty solid about those being exactly what we will see tomorrow.
Yeah, I would agree. And Chuck, the 2 main categories that we've seen as kind of the drivers over the last, the last season and then seasons previous was always going to be that towards the right, the win percentage plus SOS, which means your winning percentage plus your strength of schedule combined. And it comes up with a cumulative number, and the higher the number, the better. And then the KPI, which is the Kevin Pauga index, which essentially is a number that's come up with completely in a different fashion that's going to go ahead and really look at how good does your resume look and how have you done with it. And there is a margin of victory component with that as well, Chuck. And you're going to see a lot of these kind of go to some extent in that KPI order, unless you're looking at it where teams start to go from 1 loss to 2 loss, 2 loss to 3 loss, and so forth. Chuck, I felt real good about the top 4 for sure. That 5, 6, 7, I think could be in any old order because they all look real similar in a beauty contest. They've all beaten each other. And the Frostburg State one, they are kind of on the next line below. And I'm noticing we did have a typo there where they said that we had a head-to-head win over Delta. That was a plant there to see if anyone in the comments could find it. I noticed someone did. Then, Ferg, as I take a look at this, we're not used to, we're looking at this now, every handful of years, we have new super regions. And we have Fayetteville State and the CIAA in Super Region 1. And tell us some of your thoughts here for covering the CIAA and kind of how you see the breakdown with the teams involved.
Well, VUU and Johnson C. Smith makes complete sense. The only loss that JCSU has is to VUU, and the only one for VUU is out of conference. I think that makes complete sense. You look at a Fayetteville State and on the 9 line, and a lot of that is just based on their strength of schedule. They have Benedict and Pembroke, and then they, just had their loss to JCSU. All 3 of those teams have some sort of playoff aspirations, and so they're sort of really benefiting there. And I think the one that is kind of out there right now, not on this page, but also to consider is Virginia State. And that'll sort itself out this week in particular. But a win by them could certainly have them playing into this conversation potentially. So, a lot of good things happening in the CIAA, and to see Fayetteville State at that 9 line is testament to that.
Well, and I think, Chuck, this is one of those things where we were kind of alluding to this where, before the show about conference championships now play a whole new role in this. And like Chuck, you were making mention of Assumption earlier in the Northeast 10 with Bentley. If Bentley wins and all of a sudden Bentley gets in and Assumption is still good enough to stay in the top 8, then Bentley's kind of stolen a bid, right?
Yeah, very possibly. And I think that's probably one of the most obvious impacts that we can see, at least as of right now, of an AQ really kind of upsetting the field. Because Bentley otherwise is not really in the picture here at all. In the old days, even if they beat Assumption, probably still not really in the picture. But since they would earn the AQ, that really would kind of upset the balance of this field. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And even though, it's a long shot for some other teams that are out there, West Virginia State is not completely out of it because they still play Frostburg and Charleston. So, there's still a path for them. There's still a path for Edinboro. We don't need to get to run down those rabbit holes too much because those are unlikely scenarios. But the Bentley and Assumption one is a very real possibility.
Well, and the head-to-head piece is the hardest part to kind of figure with all this, because if 2 teams are right next to each other, essentially what they have for criteria is going to indicate that head-to-head should win out that. So we may see some of that applied yet, and we're certainly going to talk more about it in some of the future slides we have here.
All right. Well, that was probably the cleanest of the 4 super regions in terms of not feeling like there was a ton of drama. So from there, Whit will go to Super Region 2, which really was nothing like that. After the first 2, which I think we felt very good about those 2 teams at 1 and 2. After that, it gets pretty murky.
Yeah, I liked, Newberry at 3, but then, boy, Chuck, you and I at 4, 5, 6, 7. We were probably making cases for a few different ways on how this could go. And if we're taking a look here, Newberry has as we take a look at the KPI, at the .271 in these kind of measures, they were the top 10 nationally in KPI, which is the strength of schedule, like Ferg made reference to in our last slide, is huge for Wingate here. They're at 592. They've got wins over teams like Pembroke and Carson Newman, and you really see a kind of a heavy SAC concentration here with Newberry, Wingate, Carson Newman, just like that. Even Emory and Henry towards the bottom of the page, and we just felt like when everything kind of shakes out, Wingate looked like the fourth best team on paper on this list, slightly edging out Benedict. But Chuck, I got the feeling like if they had Carson Newman right next to Wingate, all of a sudden that could change the dynamic altogether, because Carson Newman has beaten him head to head. So that's the wild card in this, in my opinion, Chuck, is where does Wingate land on the paper tomorrow? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's the toughest one to figure out. This is also one of the regions where we'll start to really kind of get a picture of what's the committee really valuing here. And if they kind of go easy route and kind of stack rank these teams by the records first, which I'd like to think that they aren't going to do that, but we've seen that happen in the past. Then you definitely could see Benedict and maybe even Kentucky State up there a little bit higher than they are. Realistically, knowing these teams and seeing what they've done on the field, I think we feel the most comfortable with this. But K-Ferg, a couple questions for you. First of all, I mean, Albany State, do you think that they are legit up there as a host team at this point?
Yes, absolutely.
How about just a shout out for a team that I don't know exactly where they're going to land here, but in the years I have been doing this, I'm quite confident we have never spoken about Kentucky State.
That's right.
In the playoff picture, and there they are at 7-1 against D2.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Kentucky State, they've been in the championship mode like 10 years ago, and then they fell off. But the way that they've been able to play this year, and the way they scheduled, quite frankly, has been pretty good to be able to get that another game against a D2 school in Franklin Pierce and make that trip and win that game. That really helps in a scenario like this. So definitely big kudos to them.
Yeah, so Chuck, I think we're expecting to see the SAC get every benefit of the doubt based on their strength of schedule and how they have been playing a lot of good football teams. I'm expecting that tomorrow. Is that kind of your same takeaway?
I think so. One of the other ones I'm really interested in here is where does Delta State end up? I kind of feel like based on all the metrics that's probably right, but and I've seen some things in the comments here too. When I look at the teams that are above Delta State, how many of those teams do I really like going head to head against Delta State?
Not a lot. Not many of them.
Not a lot. So
we'll see. That's not what the criteria is.
It's not. It's not. So I'm very curious about that. But yeah, Whit, I think you unpacked it pretty well there. I think where Wingate lands really determines how almost everything in the second half of that top 10, how that's going to land.
Yeah, I mean, we could be more bullish on Wingate than the committee is. Maybe they'll be as low as 6 tomorrow. We'll have to see.
Right. We could see Carson Newman up there in fourth or fifth potentially.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, on to Super Region 3. So we have a couple of unbeatens, 3 actually in this region. We feel very good about Ferris State and Findlay at 1 and 2. I tend to think, Whit, and I know we weren't in total agreement on this earlier, I tend to think that the committee will give deference to Augustana as a 9-0 football team and put them at number 3. You felt like there were some reasons why that might not be the case. So walk us through that.
Yeah, looking at Indy and Ashland, if you take a look kind of left to right, all the way to the KPIs, which is the second column from the end on the right, Augustana's at 201, whereas Ashland or Indy is almost 100 points higher, which is really significant in this, and Ashland as well. So they absolutely would. I mean, that's taking in consideration record. So, Augie's has beaten 2 teams and only played 2 teams with a record over 500. That's where that kind of plays into that. So we could see Augie being rewarded for being undefeated in the Northern Sun and being up as high as 3. but I could see them being as low as 5. And I think that's the biggest thing, Chuck, I walked away with was, where does Augustana land on this list? And you know what? If I would have zero issue with either one, because of the fact that they have Mankato next, and that's going to really help their numbers and help shape more of the full conversation than what we have with Augustana right now. Then after that, Chuck, we've got Duluth. I think they're pretty an obvious 6 to me. And then, Chuck, I thought that got kind of interesting was 7, 8, 9. How did you kind of unpack that when you were looking at it originally this morning?
Yeah, that's exactly what I landed on, 7, 8, and 9. Of course, Truman has a really good SOS, or at least a pretty good SOS, and they've got 3 wins against teams that are over 500. I felt pretty good about them being at number 7. Now, might Minnesota State get a little bit of preference coming from what we perceive as a stronger league? Might they be up there in 7th or right behind Duluth? I think that that's a possibility. Where things stand today, I don't think that's something that you really need to overthink a whole lot as the committee, because we know that there's still some really big games to play.
Right.
And realistically, the way this shakes out now, whether you're 5, 6, 7, 8, it doesn't really matter anymore. In the old days, it did. Today, it doesn't. So I don't know that they will stress over that too much. I do think that those 3 teams there at 6, 7, 8 are the right 3 teams. Exactly what order they'll be in, I don't know. And then I think Upper Iowa was the right team for 9th. 10th, you could make a lot of different cases for that 10th team. I landed on Northwood. I think you did as well, but you could have Michigan Tech in there. That's certainly a possibility, and there's some others that are in play also.
Yeah, and Chuck, one of the things that we're looking at here, some people may say, well, Truman's numbers don't maybe look as good as something with Upper Iowa like the KPI. Well, Upper Iowa loses to Truman head to head, and that is why we have them bumped up a touch there. If Upper Iowa ends up being 7 or 8, I wouldn't be shocked by that. Maybe 8, I should say. So I think the real question I have, Chuck, tomorrow, and I'm not just saying this as a Northern Sun guy, but where's Augustana land and where's Mankato land?
Yep. No, I think you're right. Augustana is the one that I'm very curious about. I think the committee will probably defer to them and put them in 3, but we shall see when the rankings come out tomorrow.
Yep.
So the nuanced pieces of this are, and again, how the committees apply the criteria always kind of massages from year to year. But I have talked to people on the committee before, and they have said, hey, if you're undefeated, there's just something that we're going to give you in terms of consideration that anybody else who isn't won't get.
And that's understandable, isn't it?
Yep, it sure is. And as far as the Truman and Upper Iowa thing, I think that's the only pushback I would give you guys on this one, is that typically head-to-head is really only going to matter if the 2 teams finish right next to each other,
right,
in where the numbers say, right? So, people treat that like it's a math problem, which in this is not the NFL where everything's a math problem. This is much more subjective, and so typically that head-to-head really only impacts it if you end up right next to each other. If one team lost to the other one, but their resume is like markedly better for a whole host of reasons, they could still be above them.
Yeah, and that's
we saw that in
Region
2 with some of the SAC teams. But yeah, you're right, and that's why head-to-head is very imperfect.
Yep.
Yeah, and that 7, 8, 9 is definitely the back half to keep an eye on right there, for sure. Now, a lot of our audience seems to be very interested in the next one, which is Super Region 4. Chuck, let me have you take your first shot at some of your observations and kind of as you were going through it.
Well, I think probably with the last one, it's at 1 through 4, probably Super Region 1, I think is a better example. 1 through 4, feel very comfortable with that. Harding, Central Wash, Northwest, and Pueblo. I feel very comfortable with that. Now, when you get down into 5, 6, 7, and 8, this could go a couple of different ways. And there's some nuance to this that could get very, very interesting. Notice the comment that we have there for Pitt State at number 6. They have the common opponent with a couple of teams out there. UCLA.
Oh, yeah, with UTP.
With themselves.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. That is noteworthy.
All right, so Pitt State.
You found the other one.
Too many letters. Too many. All these letters. Anyway, Pitt State and UTPB have a common opponent, which is UCO, and they have different results against that. So when you've got some similar resumes, you do go down to those levels. And we've kind of heard that that's already been discussed a little bit. So where Pitt State lands tomorrow, Whit, I think that's the most interesting thing about this bracket. Because I think 1 through 4 is pretty easy.
Yeah, and then, from there, I had Western Colorado at 5, and then after that, I could have gone anywhere from UTPB at 6, but then they, if I take a look at this, they have to have a little bit of a separator like Tony talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have UTPB at 6, then I'm going to need to have Chadron or Pitt after that before I get to Western Oregon, because Western Oregon's got a head-to-head with UTPB. So there's a lot of, like Chuck was alluding to there, you could see Pitt as high as 6, in my opinion, maybe 5, but I would say 6, but maybe as low as 8 or 9. And you could also see UTPB as high as 6 if how much the common opponent piece is taken into consideration. And I think that'll be very key, Chuck, for us tomorrow, because we're going to go ahead and see to what level of consideration is it being, put into this. Now, Chuck, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about kind of that 10 line and East Central there. We've got some people in the comments who are asking about maybe some other teams there. Kind of what was some of the thinking for you as we move into that 10 spot?
Well, and I think there was also a little bit of a mention. I think we've got some of the wrong stats there for Western Oregon, but
right.
That is where we had them ranked, and I
right.
think we talked through that. So, well, East Central has a couple of real quality wins on the board here. I think that's what's really kind of propping them up. Also, there's like 13 or 14 teams in the GAC right now that are 6-3. So, I mean, it's just.
Right.
There's a lot of teams there that don't have much of a separator there on record. East Central has wins over Ouachita. They have wins over Arkansas Tech. And just this past weekend, they really thumped Southern Arkansas, who, as you mentioned earlier, a week ago, they would have been looking pretty comfy in this picture. Mm-hmm. So I think East Central has really kind of earned their way into this with some quality wins.
Yeah, and a team like Chadron, I mean, we're not used to them they haven't been in this mix in a good while, and they're right here, but they do have 2 future games up ahead of them with where they got Pueblo and they got Western in the next 2 games, so they're going to have a chance to play their way in or play their way out, one of the two. Now, I feel like though the upper portion is pretty much what it is right now. Barring upsets, and that 6 through 8 gets real interesting as to who's going to make it in there.
Yep. All right. Well,
yeah,
that's.
I'm sorry, Chuck. Let me make sure before we get into any questions, I always want to make sure we unpack Flow Sports for all the video that we're getting between the Flow Sports and Huddle with the RMAC. That's where we're able to go ahead and get highlights for tonight. And always appreciate that. And we always want to give you guys at least some videos from the top games to give you a picture of what these squads look like if you haven't had a chance to watch them much yourself. Chuck, I will let you go ahead and kind of take it from there, buddy.
Well, we're running a bit long tonight, which we expected to, since
Yep.
This is sort of our kind of unpacking the regional rankings. So let's just pull this down, Whit. If you don't mind, just pull that down. We'll just go through a couple of questions. We won't do a ton. I think we lost K-Ferg there, so we'll just kind of drop him out. K-Ferg, if you want to come back on, just let us know. Come back on camera. We'll pull you back in. Let's just do a couple. Anyone know the QB situation at Delta State? Man, it's been kind of a puzzle all season long, but we didn't even the Whit. I think you kind of mentioned we didn't see Cole Kirk at all,
right?
In this last game. So, and I've kind of alluded to, I think that's where I have some apprehension with them, is just they're just not fully settled there. So, don't have any answers for you, unfortunately. No, I don't know what the situation is there. John wants to have encouraged about the state of the GAC. Woof. Well. Yeah, kind of a mention. There's just a whole bunch of teams there. I mean, obviously it's hurting everybody else. We know that, but
nobody else wants to go grab the ring. But there's been a chance there. I mean, Southern Arkansas is going to be kicking themselves, I think. But
yeah. So we will see if anybody really does emerge down the stretch here as another playoff threat out of the GAC. Joe says, man, I just can't get on board with the GMAC. I guess they have some good teams, but are they really? Well, I get it. Joe. I think it's been a lot more fun to watch the GMAC this year than probably any of the past several years. I think Northwood becoming kind of a fourth player in that league, along with Findlay, Tiffin, and Ashland, I think has made it a lot more interesting. We talked about Walsh. Are any of those teams going to win a national championship? No, absolutely not. But it's been a fun league to follow, and I think a couple of those teams deserve to be in the top 25 as they are. And who knows? With the regional rankings, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But I get it. I know why you can't quite get there with them as elite teams, but not everybody in Division II is elite, but still a very good team.
Chuck, I'm going to throw one on here. Our guy Draper from the RMAC show taking shots.
Yeah.
At some of his elders right there. That was very disrespectful, Draper. I'll remember this.
Why are we catching strays? What's up with that?
Yeah, exactly. Draper, why don't you go back and study the top 25? Maybe figure out who all the teams are.
Let's see. Inkblot had actually mentioned, I think he might have started this next year. Probably everything will be a math problem. Yeah, I think he had another comment that was in there that I was going to start earlier about getting everything down to an all-in-one metric, which KPI is kind of sending us in that direction a little bit.
We can only hope.
Then we won't have anything there to argue about, Chuck. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I don't know. Then I guess I wouldn't have to spend Sunday mornings talking to you. We could just pull up the spreadsheet and say, "There's the numbers."
Probably be a much better morning.
2 shots.
That's right.
Smith, what's going on here?
Yeah. Kick a guy when he's down, right? After 7-0.
There was plenty of conversation in the comments all night long. I try to keep up with that and see if there's anything in here we really want to bring in. I'm just doing another quick scan. We are running a bit long tonight, so I think we'll probably call that a show.
Chuck, I was going to say real quick, any of the data errors and the spreadsheets we show, I'll take that completely. I was throwing that all together real quick before our show, and I had a bad feeling that by the time I got towards the last ones, I was between dozing off and typing in. We just wanted to give you guys a little bit kind of a window of what you may see tomorrow and kind of how you get there. So, Chuck, what is that, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that? Those come out?
Yeah, we'll see. I've been hearing that the committees are actually really kind of pushing most of their meetings on this to Monday. So we'll see if that changes the timeline. But yeah, it's usually somewhere in the 4 to 5:30 Eastern time frame that we can look for that. So I think got through most of the comments, so we'll call it. I do want to make one quick editorial comment, and then we'll call it a show and dismiss for the night. I did just want to mention a handful of people have reached out to me and some of the others about the website, which of course D2Football.com, the homepage. A lot of you have noticed that recently the Google ads on the homepage have become a little bit more invasive, kind of chopping up the blog posts a little bit more than it used to. And we are very much aware of that. We're not really happy about that experience either. I'm not dismissing any of the comments, any of the feedback, any of the criticisms. It's all valid. Do just know that right now, as we're just still kind of mid-season, there's not a whole lot that we can do about it right now. And it is also really the only way that the website is monetized, which is very important. So until we can kind of get our arms around that and figure that out, do appreciate your patience in tolerating that, and try to read all the good words written by our columnists and the articles, and try to navigate that as best you can. But we do recognize and understand that that's not the best user experience. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you for watching the show. And the numbers are great. Really appreciate everybody watching. I've seen that kind of steadily grow all evening. So really do appreciate that, and can't wait to be back here again next week when we have more data, more to unpack. And guys, can you believe in 2 weeks we'll be talking about the playoff field here on Inside D2 Football. So still so much more to happen before the end of this college football season. So for the guys, I will say good night, and we'll see you back here next week for Inside D2 Football.